It was the year 2007 and I was an 8-year-old child named Ismail. Now I am 21 years old. The story I am about to tell is entirely true and has happened to me. We had a happy family. I was born in Balchik, Bulgaria. We lived in the middle of the forest in a house that belonged to my grandparents. I was a fearless child. We used to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and play games with the neighborhood kids until 2100 hours in the evening. Our favorite game was hide and seek. During the summer, we would gather around 2100 hours to play hide and seek. I loved the darkness, and while playing this game, I used to enjoy the nights. Despite it being scary, I would hide in the woods waiting for someone to find me. Imagine which child would hide in the forest in the middle of the night. I guess I wasn't afraid, or at least I thought so. Every evening, we would play this game and then comfortably return home until one night. Again, we gathered around 2100 hours to play hide and seek. There was a vast ditch near our house where we used to throw our garbage since there were no garbage bins where we lived. It was a deserted area and the government didn't pay much attention to it. That night, I had a strange feeling inside me. I didn't know exactly what it was, but it felt weird. I had never felt like this before. As we started playing hide and seek, I found myself diving deep into the forest again. I leaned against the roots of a tree waiting for someone to find me. Then I heard a whisper. "Look behind you." I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't really know what fear was. I turned around, but there was no one there. I thought maybe one of my friends was playing a prank on me. "I can see you, come out." I shouted even though I couldn't see anyone. It was just something I said, hoping they would come out if they were hiding. Then I realized something was wrong. I couldn't hear my friends' voices anymore. I thought they had given up the game, so I decided to leave the forest to look for them. But I couldn't get out. I walked, but it felt like the path never ended. I started walking faster, but the path still stretched endlessly. Then I started running desperately, but I couldn't get out. I thought I was lost and my breath became shallow. I sat down on the ground and started crying. My only fear was not being able to see my family and them scolding me. Then I heard the whisper again. "Look behind you." But this time it felt like it was right next to my ear. I turned my head and I saw him. He was a tall, dark figure, his face barely visible. That's when I truly understood what fear was. I was speechless, unable to control my breath. My heart felt like it was about to jump out of my chest. I tried to open my mouth, but it felt heavy. I couldn't. My eyes widened with fear. I stood up, intending to run, but he was still there, unmoved. We stared at each other for what felt like 15 seconds, then he started walking towards me and I started backing away. His one step was equivalent to almost 5 of mine, but I couldn't take my eyes off him. I was moving backward, but at the same time I was still looking at him. Then suddenly he started running, and I turned around to run, too. I was going crazy, thinking I couldn't escape. Then I found myself in the middle of the road, our street. I ran towards home, but I felt a heaviness in my lips as I ran towards the lights. I entered the house and my family was asleep. I started waking them up, but my voice wouldn't come out. I shook them until they woke up and my mother screamed, asking what was wrong, and she picked me up. While my mother tried to calm me down by holding me, my father began to frantically check around. They were surprised to see that nothing was missing or taken from the house. Then my mother took out the photo album and started flipping through it. Pointing to a picture, she asked, "Was this the woman who came to the house?" When I confirmed it, my mother abandoned the idea of theft and tried to understand what was going on. Then she noticed something. She said the man in the photo was my grandfather. She said he had died in the village years ago, but I had never seen him. I was still in fear. My mother said we needed to close the subject immediately and that she would stay awake until morning. The next morning, my mother, father, and I discussed the incident carefully. My father said I needed to stop being afraid and be brave. He emphasized that they were responsible for working and maintaining this house. I told them I understood, but the fear inside me still persisted. After a while, my mother and father had to go to work. I had to stay home alone. Initially, I was very scared, but I gradually started to become brave. I began to focus on the guitar my father gave me. Engaging in music distracted me and made me forget my fears. One day, the phone rang. The caller, introducing herself as my aunt from Germany, surprised me because I had no idea. She said she was in Balchik and wanted to come visit us. I agreed and I waited for her at home. But she didn't show up. While talking on the phone, my mother came and tried to warn me. After hanging up the phone, I told my mother what had happened. It scared her a lot and she said we needed to go home immediately. When we returned home, my mother tried to calm me down and told me that my aunt had passed away. What happened that day deeply affected me and I could never be the same again. But with the support of my family, I knew I could overcome my fears. And music was a great support to me during this process. Now, even when I remember my past fears, I know I can overcome them. Despite everything, life goes on, and I'm trying to be brave. Thank you for listening to me. See you in the next video. Goodbye.